Does anybody know off the top of your head how many hours we have in a week? Not enough, absolutely not. And S. Swider says 168 for the win. So that's not a lot of hours when you consider that we have to spend some of them sleeping and some of them eating and lots of them tending to our charges, whether it's family or work or patients or whoever. So in all that, students we all have the same amount of hours. So one of the concerns as a teacher is, are the students keeping up? Are they doing the work that I'm setting forth? And a lot of times in my experience, no, they're not. They're winging it or leaving it to the last minute and not doing as well as they could be doing. And I used to just get mad at the students and say, bad things about students. But then I realized that I could be doing some things that would make my teaching more effective. And so I put together this workshop going through my own personal experiences. What could I have done differently? What do I now do differently that I didn't do when I was teaching earlier? And so we're going to follow that same progression here. And then at the end, we're going to hopefully have time for some discussion and ideas that you guys might have for what works and what doesn't work. Ernest Hemingway said, "There's no friend as loyal as a book." And that is eminently true. You can't change the experience of immersing yourself in a good read, even if it is human anatomy. At the same time, they've got to have time to read, and they don't always have that option. They don't always have that luxury. So what's the first thing I want to look at is, hold on, we have a latecomer. I'm just going to let them in the room. Welcome to whoever joined us late. Chime in if you'd like with any questions in the chat. So what's stopping people from doing the work that we set out for them, and how can we, that's really the first question we got to answer. I think we have to take a really realistic look now at things like finances and family obligations and mental health issues and all the everyday distractions. And I harnessed some statistics for us because I thought it was mind-blowing when I started actually looking at it more in depth and finding out, okay, why is it so hard for students to do the work, and how can I adjust my behavior to help facilitate their work? So 24% of students, almost a quarter of them, say that they're fully responsible for their own college costs now. That's a big shift from back in the day. Most of them, 70% of them, are taking time off from work from school so that they can work and earn money for the next set of classes. And 52% of college students are working 27 weeks out of the year. My daughter is in college now at the moment. She's working, I don't know, anywhere from 27 to 30 hours a week, which is crazy. Plus, she's taking a full course load. The kid doesn't sleep. But she does spend time on the Sims game that she bought. That's another topic altogether. Some interesting stats, just the average age for Rush University. This is from last term. We have another person just joining us. Welcome to whoever just joined late. The average age is 29, and out of those 29, out of all of our students, over a quarter of them are raising dependent children, which is mind-boggling to me. And then, of course, women are disproportionately likely to be balancing college and parenthood. And so, as we're building classes, we got to factor in the back of our mind, okay, are they going to be, are we being realistic with what we're being asked, with what we're asking them to do? Another thing that I think impacts how much time they have is students today are more often diagnosed with mental illness than they were back in the day. So 1 in 4 is now considered to have a diagnosable mental illness. 1 in 5 adults across the US experiences mental illness, and 1 in 25 experiences a serious mental illness that substantially interferes with or limits major life activities. And then, of course, the other factor that I think really impacts how much time people have is the idea that technology is everywhere, including in the classroom. And so in this study in 2016, they said 20% of their classroom time, students spent 20% of their classroom time using digital devices for doing other things. They have their laptop open in front of them, and it looks like they're taking notes, but when in actual fact, they're texting or emailing their mother or on Facebook or whatever. So our students are just they're not as focused on, it used to be, at least in my mind, students lived and breathed for the academic experience, and that's the only thing they cared about, and not so much anymore. So the bridge to that topic, you know, what's taking up all of their time, to this one is, I need to know as an instructor, how much information am I going to give them? How much is too much? How much is not enough? How much homework do I give them? How much time can I expect them to spend in my class and working in my topic? And that is where we want to spend the bulk of what we're talking about today. One thing to always keep in mind is that everything we do is based on the federal credit hour. We're an accredited educational institution. We take financial aid. Therefore, every single thing that we think about has to be based on the federal credit hour and the definition that they give. So no matter what we think that we should do, we have to make sure that we're following the official definition. So a federal credit hour definition is a credit hour is the amount of work represented in intended learning outcomes and verified by evidence of student achievement that is an institutionally established equivalency that reasonably approximates, not less than, here's the nugget that really matters, right? All the rest is preamble, 1 hour of classroom or direct faculty instruction and a minimum of 2 hours of out-of-class work for each week for approximately 15 weeks, right? So you have that amount of time to work with, that's the bare minimum of what you need to do. You can give them more, but you can never, ever, ever give them less. So how do you determine what 2 hours of out-of-class student work each week for approximately 15 weeks looks like? And that's where we start getting confused. And when how does this translate for online instruction, which seems to be 24/7? I think what you're asking, Paula Jo, is there's a distinction between faculty interaction in terms of answering questions and addressing issues versus projecting the educational experience. And we can talk about that in a little bit. We'll talk about that, I think, on the next slide even. Yeah, so the key phrases from the official federal guidelines are that the evidence has to be verified, or the work has to be verified by evidence of student achievement. So you have to be able to show assessments of some kind that show, hold on, I've got a couple people waiting. I'm not sure why they're in a waiting room, but I'll look at that later. Apologies to those who are just being allowed in. We'll keep going. We're talking about the federal guidelines for credit hour, an official credit hour. Has to be verified by evidence of student achievement, some sort of assessment, some sort of weight that shows that, yes, they've achieved the objectives. The 1 hour of classroom or direct faculty instruction is key, and then a minimum of 2 hours out of class student work each week, which is those are the two pieces that you have to be thinking about. And then you also have to think the out-of-class student work can include laboratory work, internships, practica, studio work, and other academic work. So anything like research or time that they're going to spend reading articles, time that they're going to spend gathering materials. Now for online, the key word here is active engagement. And the federal government and accreditation boards define engagement as, and this is what I was talking about, Paula Jo, they define the engagement as when it's active and in time. So in other words, if you're actively teaching, you're presenting a workshop, you've recorded a lecture and it's 30 minutes long, that 30 minutes is considered direct faculty instruction. The time that you spend answering questions after the lecture can be considered direct faculty instruction. So you want to start tracking that time if you're in an online situation. And if you find yourself spending 4 hours of doing direct interaction with students, 4 hours over the course of a week, then you want to look at, okay, maybe I'm doing too much. Or, you know, look at, are there other ways that I can produce more materials that are static or available to the students asynchronously in the online environment, so that I don't have to be the one answering every question. Does that help at all? Actually, Paula Jo's asking if it would include responses on the discussion board. And I'm trying to think if that is considered direct contact. I believe that it is. I want to look that up though before because it depends. Different accreditation boards have different rules about what is direct faculty instruction. So let me make a note and I'll look that up. But yes, that does include the discussion boards, I believe. Let me just make a quick note because you guys are with Rushes with the HLC, and I want to make sure I don't misspeak, especially given that we're up for accreditation soon. So again, for online learners, making sure that it's active engagement. The students have to be, on their part, they have to be submitting something, they have to be responding to a discussion board, they have to be posting questions, they have to be doing something actively to engage in class. They can't just log in and look at stuff. That does not count as the 2 hours of out-of-class student work. Right, so that's something to be thinking about too as you're developing your materials. Okay, so what do we do as teachers? And this is where we get into the good stuff, right? So we want to help them with time management, right? We want to help ourselves with time management. We want to make sure that we are setting ourselves up to maintain our own sanity, especially again with online classes, but on face-to-face classes too. You can, after you've been teaching for a while, you can anticipate what students are going to ask, and you can provide answers to them sort of embedded into the materials, and hopefully you can eliminate some of that back and forth. Got another person joining late. Sorry for the interruption here. Welcome to whoever came in. So one of the things that I like to do is help students with time management, and especially in the beginning. We'll get into some details in that in the next section. Want to make sure that your assignments are really well designed and really well explained. This is key. What you think is well explained and what they think is well explained is going to be two different things usually. So if you're perennially getting things that you don't feel achieve the mark, look at how you're wording your instructions. If you're perennially getting the same kinds of questions from students about how to do something, look at how you've written your instructions and see if you can't build out more detail in the instructions than you've got currently. Because I guarantee you that when we set the expectations appropriately from the beginning, we eliminate a lot of the confusion on students' part at the end. And then the last point that I really like to make too is that as the subject matter experts, the SMEs, you guys are so much quicker than the students, right? You have these things just right out, you can rattle this stuff off in your sleep. They don't have that luxury. So they're tackling new material and different material than what they're used to, especially at the lower levels. They have no idea. And so you have to think in processing time as well as the actual physical time it takes to read something. You have to build in time for them to look things up. You need to build in time for them to research. You need to build in time for them to ask questions as part of that 2 hours per week that you have to work with. So one of the things I talk about is reteaching homework skills. And I know this sounds silly, but especially as you get older students who haven't been in school for a while, or maybe they're coming back after a break, or maybe they're part-time students, all right, they sometimes need that kind of coaching. And so reteaching homework skills is just setting aside a page in your course that gives suggestions for your success. There's even a section on the syllabus that in the syllabus template that allows you to address ideas for success for students. And I really strongly recommend that you fill those in with things that you know work from your experience. Details like how long they should spend on a task. Embed that right into the syllabus so that as a student, I know that you think it's going to take me 30 minutes to read this case study and develop a response to it. And you think that's going to be a 30-minute project. That way, as a student, I can sort of set myself up with the expectation, okay, I need to spend 30 minutes on this. If it takes me an hour and a half, I can then go to you afterwards and say, whoa, it took me an hour and a half. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. And it becomes a teachable moment rather than them just being lost, right? I'm a firm believer in creating assessments that are designed to engage students from the get-go, because when you're engaged in something, you're going to work at it more efficiently. You're going to be more excited about it. You're going to be more timed into the, or plugged into the time of it. So it really does go back again to the beginning of the class and setting yourself up, setting them up for success. So we're going to talk about front loading support. And what I mean by that is the first couple of times that you do an assignment, really pay attention to what the reaction is and what you're getting back from students, and if it's what you're looking for. And walk them through assignments. Be really generous of your time in the beginning. And help them. You know, I give my students exemplars. They're doing a capstone project. I got so tired of seeing things that I didn't like that I started putting examples up of what I did like. And I said, look at what they did and do it like that. And that's amazingly helpful for some students because they need to see what other people have done before them. They want to know what you're expecting. I definitely recommend creating a safe space. I know that's a targeted expression right now, but learning by losing has to be okay. Like, they have to know that you're going to be okay if they don't get something 100% right. Making sure they know where to get support. So student services and the Office for Student Success. And sometimes it helps if you can, and if it's realistic, to go over the results in small groups, always making sure to praise in public and criticize in private. All right. So you never want to call anybody out for giving exactly the wrong answer that's going to kill somebody. That's not a good thing. But you definitely want to give people the opportunity to shine. There's so much. This is so hard because we assign work without really thinking about how long it's going to take. And we don't think, again, about how long it's going to take them physically, right? The average word per minute reading is 150 to 200 words per minute. So if you're assigning a 400-page textbook, right, that's going to be a significant amount of reading, even though there's pictures and graphs and case studies blocked out and all these different things that textbooks do to try to make it more interesting. You still got to slog through all the words. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if they're new words or words that you're not familiar with, that's going to slow your reading down tremendously. The average words per minute for a skilled adult reader, which is the average college student, is 300 words per minute with familiar material. Unfamiliar material, again, it drops down, sometimes as low as 75 words per minute. And the average comprehension on the first pass, 60%. So that's I did a reading test on my own in preparation for this, and I'm an exceptionally fast reader, but my comprehension, because I was doing it under pressure on a testing situation, my comprehension was only about, I want to say 45%, 47%. I was horrified because I always thought that I was, a superstar reader. Yeah, reality strikes. When it comes to writing, for handwriting, adult population, the average speed of copying is 68 letters per minute, 13 words per minute. And then when it comes to typing, the average person types between 38 and 40 words per minute. Now, when you're talking about professional typists, that jumps up to about 65, 75 words per minute. So you got to figure, not only do they have to read and comprehend, but they also have to physically type this stuff, and it takes time, especially when you've got somebody that's doing the one finger. My husband was taking classes not too long ago, and he types with these two fingers, and he was lamenting the fact that it took him so long to bang out a paper. Going back to the reading, it takes how long to read 100 pages. So if the average page has 250 to 300 words, the average word count for a 100-page book is 25,000 to 30,000. 300 words per minute take you 83 minutes to 100 minutes to read the book. Fun fact. So and again, I'm going to send all these things out. You don't need to write, be furiously writing down these statistics. Just put them in the back of your head that as you're developing your assignments and assessments for your classes, keep in mind, oh, maybe I shouldn't give them 1,000 pages to read. Maybe I'll only give them 500. This table is fun because it talks about the difference between no new concepts, some new concepts, and many new concepts. It also talks about the difference in reading, whether you're reading in survey style, right? You're just reading to pick up the overall ideas, whether you're reading to understand something, to really be able to understand the nuggets, or whether you're actually engaging the material and processing it so that you can then turn around and use it And as you can see, it slows down significantly when you talk the difference between surveying with no new concepts at 500 words per minute versus reading to engage the material with many new concepts, which I think is what most of us hope our students are doing, right? 65 words per minute. So it drops from 500 words per minute to 65 words per minute, right? From 67 pages per hour down to 9 pages per hour. And if it's a textbook, it's even less, 5 pages per hour. So, I mean, I read that and I was stunned. I've been killing my students for the last 20 years, basically. I don't know how they didn't complain. One of the things I talk about when I talk about how to build my class and make it more accessible to students and making sure they can get the work done is chunking the material up into smaller bites, right? I want to make sure that I'm not overwhelming them with too much to do in 1 week. So I use my capstone class because that's the class I teach most. I give them a huge overall project that turns out to be anywhere from 50 to 100 pages by the time they're done of academic writing. But I give them one section per week to work on. So they're going to look at something from this section, from this perspective 1 week, and then they'll take the same topic matter, but they'll look at it from a different perspective the next week, and then they'll add on and they'll layer in something else the next week. So they've got that same core material that they're working with throughout the term, but as they're working with it, they're looking at it from all these different angles, and the learning is deeper that way. And that's considered either stacking or tiered learning. I like to call it project-based learning. It's another form of authentic assessment and something really to strongly consider when you're working with big new concepts that you want them to really understand. In the syllabus guide, and again, we do have the syllabus guide. I'll share it at the end here. Don't forget, if you haven't updated your syllabus, we have the brand new template that's it's all Flash, and it's a fancy new template for everybody to use. And in that, we have laid out your course content with the dates, the actual content itself, the learning activities that go along with that content, the assignments that you're giving to the students for that, and the percentage of the grade. In the assignments section, that's where I would note down how long you think it might take them to accomplish this particular task or that particular goal, right? Whether it's readings or writing a paper or doing a case study, whatever it is. But definitely use that syllabus to provide a visual guide. Visual guides are hugely handy, especially to students with that learn visually. They have no idea how long. So if you tell me I have to write a 50-page paper, my heart's going to stop in my chest. If you tell me that I have to work on this section of it for this long and that it should be this many pages and it should take you this long to do it, I feel a lot more supported and a lot more anchored, and I can focus, instead of focusing all my angst and energy on the variables that I don't know, I now can focus that same energy on actually drilling into the material because you've provided answers for the variables that were scaring me. As an aside, I always like to recommend that instructors give students ideas on how they can succeed if they're not keeping up, if they're not able to accomplish what I set out for them. So I tell students, create a study group for yourselves, and I put the responsibility on them. I think one of the big issues that people get nervous about is that as an instructor, I'm spoon feeding them too much. I'm giving them too much. I don't want to nursemaid them through this thing. And that's right, I don't. But at the same time, I want them to be successful and I want them to learn. And so I'm going to go out of my way, again, to set up things that will make them successful. Things like telling them about, hey, form a study group. I'm going to give them templates whenever I can, or exemplars wherever I can. I'm going to point them to articles that will help them in their quest for whatever they're trying to learn. So if I have a whole slew of articles that I regularly reference, and you guys do this already, I know, but I'm going to make sure I include those prominently in the syllabus and in the class itself. I'm going to give them an email periodically, or a Zoom conference or something that's going to give them a, hey, you guys are doing great, keep going. Or not, maybe they're not doing so great, and you have to do the tough love thing where, this is where the metal meets the road. You guys need to step it up. There again, I recommend, if you're going to do that kind of conversation, keep it one-on-one, and so that you never get in trouble. Not that anybody here would, of course. Remember, my background is as a chef, so I have to be careful that I don't get in trouble for yelling at people. One of my very favorite tools, and I saved it for the end, I'm going to see if this actually works. I'm going to click on this link. Ta-da! And that brings me to this amazing resource. Rice University created this. It's a course workload estimator. So if you're going through and you're not sure how long something is going to take you, you're going to tally up how many pages per week you have your students reading. You're going to toggle the page density. You're going to toggle how many new concepts are in there. You're going to create whether you want them to survey or understand or engage the material. Again, those are 3 different levels of reading. Survey is just very cursory reading to get the gist, whereas understanding it is so that you can talk about it, whereas engaging it is actually being able to use it. So, and then we plug in all those different variables, and it spits out an estimating reading rate of 47 pages per hour. Now, we do that for each of these columns, so reading assignments, writing assignments, and exams, other assignments, and then we lay out how many weeks the course is. So let's say for writing assignments, I'm going to give them a total of, let's see, I don't know, 75 pages for the term. You want it to be 250 words double spaced. You want it to be research, because that's what we do mostly. And they're going to do some drafting, but it's not going to be extensive. Let's do extensive, because these guys are medical students, most of them. So estimated writing rate, it spits out, is about 5 hours per page. And this is based on the research that they've done, and they explain that in the estimation details over here. And then we're going to give them, let's say, 3 exams over the summer, or over the semester. We're going to give them 2 hours of study per exam, and there won't be any other assignments. So the estimated, for a 15-week class, the estimated workload is 26.46 hours of out-of-class work. And you need it to be 2 hours per week for 15 weeks, 30 hours. So you could actually increase your workload here. You could throw in a couple of additional assignments at 4 hours each, and that would bump you up. You could make them do 10 extra assignments. Oops. Okay, maybe not. 10's a lot. We could give them 10 extra assignments of 4 hours per assignment, and that would bring us up to the 29.313 hours of hours per week of outside work. That's an incredibly helpful tool, and I really hope that you guys can access it and use it as much as you want to. As you start doing more of that kind of drilled down specificity, you're going to find that you'll internalize how long it's going to take, how long something is. Oh, that should take them this long, or oh no, that'll take them that long. You'll start to build, and then you won't need the tool. But the tool for the beginning helps you really see how long something actually takes. And just so you can see the details, this is how they figured some of these details, right? And they do underscore that these are estimates only. So it's not going to be the end all be all. Some students are going to take longer. Some students are going to be much faster. You know, all we can do is estimate. But by doing that, it helps us to set them up for success, which is ultimately what we want. We want our students to succeed in our classes. We want our students to learn what they need to learn. So let's go back to the handy tool. If you guys have questions at this point, feel free to unmute or just use the chat box. We can go at it from that route. I really don't have too much else to officially present, but I'd love to engage and spend a few minutes talking about what you guys currently do. How do you determine how long something should take? What are the obstacles that you, is there a similar tool for lab-based classes? What I would do, honestly, is use that tool, and where it says other assignments, go ahead and plug in, use that other assignment, and estimate how long you think the lab is going to take, and that will calculate it into the total. Other questions? Do you know of any estimation for a student to reply to an initial post on the discussion board? That's a great question, Paula Jo, and what I do is I set it out. I insist that my students reply to my first post by Wednesday, right? So every single communication I send out prior to the course starting it carries the expectation that discussion boards open on Monday at noon. I expect a first post by Wednesday at midnight, and all additional follow-up posts are due by Sunday at midnight. And I'm consistent with every single class I do across the programs, so that students, and when I was in charge of the department, I made sure that all the instructors were doing the same thing, so that we trained the students Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday. And by the time I was done, everybody just knew it was Wednesdays and Sundays. So if you can get that kind of continuity within your department, great. I'm not sure if we have that luxury here, because it's so much bigger as a university. But definitely the consistency is key when it comes to consistency and communication as to what your expectations are. And the other thing I did was I would grade my discussions based on not just their initial post, but also on whether they responded. So they had to, in order to get up to 100 points, they had to answer, they would get up to 50 points for their first post, and then up to 25 points for each additional post. So if they posted an initial response, they would get it, and it was great, they would get 50 points for that, but they still would only have 50 points for the week. If they wanted to get, higher scores, they would have to respond to a peer, and then they could get up to, if they posted a response to one person, they'd get 75 points. If they respond to two other posts, then hey, they've really hit the mark. I'm going to give them up to 100 points. In terms of, okay, perfect. You already have consistency in your course. That's excellent. Sorry, I answered the wrong question. Sorry about that. In terms of time it would take a student to write a reply, that would go back to how long does it take to write a paper, almost, depending on how opinion-based or how evidence-based you want your discussion forums to be. So if it's a research-based discussion forum and they have to go and actually look things up and, get other sources and whatnot, because I've seen discussion forums like that, then that's going to be the same length of time it would take to write a paper, essentially, maybe a little bit less because you're not quite as formal. But when you're talking about, opinion-based, and I like to keep discussion boards a lot lighter and a lot less rigorous in terms of tone. I want my discussion boards to be where students come to talk about what they're learning, not show me that they've learned, if that makes sense. Does that help at all, Paula Jo? Perfect, that helps. Okay, love it. What other questions do you guys have? Do you give a word or page limit requirement for initial posts? Ooh, that's a great question. Again, it depends on the type of discussion forum that I have. So if it's if I'm trying to get them to show me that they've learned something really specific, yeah, I will require. It's a little bit more subjective for most of my discussion forums, but I do tend to, if it's something research based, I'll give them a 250 word reply. And you can turn on the word count in most discussion forums. I think you can in Blackboard as well, which is a helpful tool for them because it shows, on the one hand, I don't like word counts because then you get people my younger daughter is the one who will fill in responses just to make sure that she's got the right word count. And so she blathers a little bit because she really could say what she needs to say in half the words, but because the instructor wanted X number of words, she feels like she has to add in. But yeah, I definitely 250 words, 300 words is for an initial post. But it goes more on, for me, it goes more on the quality of the post than on the quantity of the post. and then never thought about doing that before. It would help students who ramble, like me, and me. I'm a rambler. I'm not a gambler. And those who give a one-liner. The key is to draw those one-liners out a little bit more too, because just like in a real classroom, a face-to-face classroom, you know, you have people in the front of the room who just blah, 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 and then you got people sitting in the corners who kind of hide a little bit. I like to draw the people out who are hiding a little bit more. One of the nice things too is, I'm pretty sure you can do this in Blackboard. I know you can do it in the other LMSs. I offer my students the option of recording what they want to say. So sometimes people are really uncomfortable writing, and they can't communicate their ideas without a lot of effort when it comes to the written word. So I will give them the option of doing a quick recording just on their iPhone and uploading it to YouTube and posting the link into the discussion board. There are also tools you can use. One of them that you can use is it's called VoiceThread. I think I've talked about VoiceThread before. It's let me see if I can actually. I'll do a new share. Let's see. Okay, so now you're looking at my other desktop, and I'm going to scoot over to VoiceThread. And VoiceThread is a fun one because it allows you to post, you post your topic, and maybe you use an artifact, like in this one he's using an eagle and talking about the parameters of flight and whatnot. And so he posts his video, and then the students come in and respond to him. All these windows on the left are different people responding. So again, that's a kind of a nice way. If it's informal, you can do a free account. I don't know exactly what the different limitations of the free account are. I haven't used it for a while, but I like VoiceThread a lot when it comes to that, because it gives people an opportunity to actually talk and it gives a little bit more humanity to the class than just writing in a discussion forum. The other thing you can do too is, and here again, now we're getting deep into the, you know, how far do you want to go? You could set up Zoom sessions like this with students and have discussions that way. I've got a class opening up in February that they're trying it. We'll see how it goes. It's hard sometimes to get students to go in tandem, you know, and be somewhere at the right time. So I'm not a huge fan of doing that in a remote class. Okay. Other questions that you guys might have? Thoughts, complaints, issues, wants, needs, desires? If there are no other questions, you guys by all means are I'm happy to have you email me at any point. My contact information is on this slide. Definitely want to thank you for coming today, making sure that you know about our next workshops. I don't have the dates or the times yet for these, but they'll be coming out via email. Who Knew About Who Knew It, which is that's going to be a fun workshop. I learned a lot about Who Knew It when I went to this the last time. And then Poll Everywhere, increasing interaction in your course. Poll Everywhere is just a fun little tool you can add into your course. And yes, I will be sending actually a recording, and I'll send the link for the actual slides. So if you don't want to hear me rambling on, you can just click through the slides real quick. So I'll send that out to you. It'll take me a day or so to get the recording together. But yeah, thank you for coming. I'm glad you guys came, and by all means, come to the next one. We're trying to do these as often as we can now, so that we can get lots of interaction and lots of new ideas flowing. Thank you all. All right, I've just given you, it's 11:44. I've given you back 16 minutes. Go and have a few moments to yourself, and I'm going to go and start working on the next task I've got. I really appreciate everybody being here. Oh, and I forgot, I'm going to send out a link too, so if you want to do an eval, you can do that. Make sure you say nice things, because I got to keep working. All right, thanks everybody.